Hello everyone, we're going to make a flat house. To do so, the first thing I'm going to do before I start this project up is I'm going to go ahead and select my colors. To do so, I'm going to go ahead and go over to my palettes and I'm going to select, let's go ahead and go to, let's choose some nice simple colors. Go to, perhaps pastels. Let's choose a nice, that's too much. How about we go, there we go, landscape. Let's do that one. So we'll go and choose landscape for our background. I think I like that much better to do landscape. So with this, we're going to go ahead and in choosing that, I'm going to go ahead and pick one of these palette collections to use as my primary palette collection. Now I've clicked on the palette collection here, Desert, and I've selected the folder. You'll notice that it popped up here in my swatches. So I can go ahead and I can close this, and I have those colors already preset. They're sitting in my swatch file here, so they're easy and ready to get a hold of. All right, now to begin, I'm going to start off with a light color, say for the house, and start off with a nice light tan color. And I'm going to begin by left click and go ahead and drag and create myself a rectangle. And I'm going to do that fairly squared off one right there. And you'll notice that I have the stroke turned off, and I only have the fill on. Now this is sort of going to be the front side of my wall right now at this point. So I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and create the side wall. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and hold, select the black arrow, hold the Alt key, and I'm going to drag to the side. And there's my side wall. So I'm going to do now, though, it's a little big, so I'm going to go ahead and drag in the center, shrink it up a little bit. There we go. And maybe I'll darken it up. So I've got the other brown to select from. So I'm going to select that right there. So I darken that up. So I've got the two sides of my building. Now I need to just go ahead and start off and move and create a roof line for that. For the roof line, I'm going to go ahead and select on the front wall, hold the Alt key, and again drag straight up. And I'm going to stop that so it hits right there at the top of the roof line. So I'm going to go ahead and Control plus and zoom in once. Now I've got my top part here. Now to make this a roof line, I need to go ahead and bend it. And to do that, I'm going to go to my free transform tool. And with my transform tool, I can do a little trick here that will make it a pretty smooth bend. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and select that and then go down below here and select this icon here, which is basically your free transform. It allows you to go in and really choose those anchor points and move them to anywhere you'd like. Now I'm going to select the white arrow and just left click and drag just a box around those two top anchor points. You'll notice that they are highlighted now. So what I can do now is using the shift key and the right arrow on my keyboard, I can tweak that over. You see I've gone over, and now I'm going to use the down arrow, bring that angle down, get it to look just about right. Right? This is obviously too much. This obviously is not enough. Right? You want to get it so the right side of the roof line looks like it's right about halfway down the side of the house here. All right, so we have our first line there, our roof line on this other side. I want to go ahead and fill in this triangle on the other side. To do so, I'm going to go ahead and take this roof line I already have here and hold that Alt key and drag over to the right. And I'm going to go ahead and just insert that right in that spot. You felt that just sort of click in there when it went in? If I zoom in and look at it nice and tight, you can see it's a nice seamless little tight spot there. So what I'm going to do now is I need to be able to move this point and this point back again to the other side. So what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to select just this object with my white arrow selected, and I'm going to go back to my free transform tool, and I'm going to left click and hold and go down to this bottom one right here, which is that free transform here, which allows me to anchor, change all the individual anchor points. So back up to my white arrow, and I'm just going to click and drag a box just around that one. Now with my shift and left arrow, you'll see that I can bring that all the way back, right? Adjust it just a little bit and get that to where it hit right inside there. There we go. Now I can go ahead and click off to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and select the next arrow here. I'm going to select the free transform tool again, and that free transform right there for the anchor points. Click my white arrow, click this corner here, and I'm going to drag this back over here. Just get that back, slowly get that right back into that edge. There we are. So we have these two corners here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here and pull this top corner up on this piece right here. This one needs to come up. So again, I select it, and then I'm going to go ahead and select that free distort and select just that anchor point right there. Right there. Oops. Just select off the side first. And then I'll select just that anchor point right at that point. Now I go ahead and I should go ahead and pull that up. See that right there with the up arrow? And it pulled it right up into that spot, and I am good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and Control minus, pull myself back. Now I want to go ahead and take this corner triangle, and I want it to adjust it the same color down below. So I'm going to use the white arrow here, select it once, and hit the eyedropper and sample the color below. So now I have the front and the side of the house done. All right. The next thing to do is let's go ahead and put a chimney on this house. And to do so, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select my rectangle tool. And I'm going to go ahead and click and drag a rectangle and put it right about there, make it fairly a little bit longer at the other side of the house there. Got my first one. Now I'm going to select the white arrow and hold the Alt key again. And this time I'm going to go and drag another box and go right next to it. You see that? And make sure it's nice and attached, but I'm going to shrink it up. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. And then I'm going to go in my free transform tool. And I'm going to shrink this up just a little bit because that's the side that's closest to us there on that edge. There we go. But I'm going to go ahead and lighten it up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the, with that selected, my eyedropper, sample that light color. And then I have to put these two back behind the roof line. So with my white arrow, I'm going to left click and drag a box around those two. And then I'm going to go right click on the object and say transform and, arrange and send to back. And that pushes that right back there. Now I need to select that, move that forward just a little bit. Oop. Select that with the black arrow. And then move, okay. One more time here with the black arrow. There we go. And move that so that the anchor, so the high point of the roof line gets very close here to the center of our chimney. That looks about right there. So now if I go in and go Control and minus, there we go. I have my house, I have my roof line. But you know that house looks a little tall. I think I'm going to shrink that down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is with my white arrow here, I'm going to left click and drag across those two shapes and then select my free transform. And I'm just going to grab that center and just go up a little bit. Make that house a little bit narrower. There we are. Now we're not quite looking like a bread box at this point. A little more rectangular. So the next thing I need to do at this point is I need to go ahead and put a door on. So I'm going to go ahead first and darken my color, select that dark brown, and use a rectangle. And I'm going to go ahead and left click and drag, put a rectangle on that door. There we are on that front. We've got a door. And I can go ahead now and bring that over and hold the Alt key and drag it over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it up a little bit, about half the height of the door. And then what I'm going to do is with my free transform tool, I'm going to select that center and bring it down so it lines up with the top of the house, top of the door frame, because that construction is going to be about the same there. That looks pretty good. Now I want to bring a copy of this over to the dark side. So I'm going to hold the Alt key and I'm going to drag this over and line this up right here in the center of the house here. There we are. And while it's selected, I'm going to change the color. So I'll select that eyedropper and go with that lighter brown. So now we have a window on both sides with the chimney. So let's go ahead and make ourselves some shrubbery to put around this house. So I'm going to go ahead and select the ellipse tool. And I'm going to go ahead and click and drag myself an oval. But when it's still selected, I'm going to go ahead and select a darker green there. We can get a nice color for that. And let's go another one and maybe another one here. So we've got a couple cut right there. So what I need to do now, though, is before I do anything else, is I want to go ahead and select those all together and make one big happy family. So I'm going to select the Shape Builder tool and just drag a little line right through it, group the whole thing together. Now, when it's still selected, I'm going to go back over here to my Shape tool, grab the rectangle, and I'm just going to click and drag a rectangle right across that base because I want to go ahead and crop that bottom, make a flat base on there. So with that base on there, I'm going to go back in and select both of them now. And if you remember, we've used before the shape builder tool, I mean not the shape but the pathfinder, and use the clipping tool right here for dividing. So I'm going to snip that once, and then if I click off to the side to deselect, I can then, using the white arrow, just drag up, pull the piece I want off, and throw the other part away. So with this part on, now I can go ahead and move this over and line it up with the bottom of the house. And look at that, I've got a nice bit of shrubbery right there. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more with that. So I'm going to go ahead and do my Alt and drag it over to this side. Put one on this side. Maybe I'll shrink it up a little bit. You know, I'll go ahead and use my Shift and go ahead and shrink it down a little bit. There we go. Make it a little different. But it's on the lighter side of the house, so I'm going to change that color. Let's go a lighter green. There we are. Now we've got something on the back, so we got basically some shrubbery on both sides, but now we need to go ahead and have our tree for our back there behind our house. So I'm going to go ahead and use the rectangle tool, and I got the rectangle here. And with a rectangle, actually not rectangle, yeah, I can use rectangle, or I can use a polygon or star. And I'm going to left click and drag and create a shape. Now there's got a nice little triangular shape there, nice for some shrubbery to start with, but I need to shape it. So to do so, I'm just going to select that black arrow, and I'm going to go to the Object and Envelope Distort, make with Warp. Now the first one that comes up is the arc, and that's fantastic. I'm good with that one. So I'm just going to say, OK. Now I've got it, but I need to go ahead and play with that shape a little bit. So I'm going to break it apart. So I'm going to say Object, Expand, say OK, and break it apart. So now with this piece, I can go ahead and stretch it up a little bit, maybe bring the sides in a little bit. Right, make it a little funky. Go and play with it like a tree shape. Then I'm going to go ahead and say Alt and drag a copy down. Look at that. Maybe I can go back in and tweak that a little bit more. All right, get a nice wistful sort of tree shape there. Maybe I'll do one more on that one. Hold the Alt key and drag down again. There we are. Then I'll take this whole shape that I've got right here, and I need to trim that bottom again because I want to get rid of that. So if I select that bottom shape right there, and if I go into my anchor point tool here, and go into my pen, select that anchor point tool, I can select that anchor point right in the bottom there, and I can delete that. Or I can go ahead and change the anchor point and select that and just bring that down, kind of flatten that out a little bit. There we go, because I'm going to hide that back behind the tree. You're not going to see this. There we go. So what I'm going to do with this now is go ahead and put this back behind. So I'm going to select all three parts of it here, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Pathfinder tool, go ahead and join the whole piece up together, and then I can go ahead and hold my Shift key and my free transform and go ahead and shrink it on down. There we go. So I've got one tree back over here on this side, but it's out front. I'm going to move it back. So with a right click and arrange, send to back. There we go. So I've got a nice tree there. Let's make a copy of it though. Let's go Alt and make a little copy of it. So I got another one, but I'm going to go, oops, sorry, I need to have that black arrow selected while I do that. Go and do the Alt, drag that over, and there we are. So I've got two there, which is kind of nice. But I think I'll do is this one, I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and hold that Shift key, shrink it down a little bit, and move the two of them next to each other. And I've got two nice little wispy pine-like trees sitting there. So I'm going to go ahead and let's take those though and move them on the other side also. So I select both of them, and then I can go ahead and Alt and drag over and put them on this side of the house. I think I'll flip them. And so let's go ahead and go with right click, and I'm going to go ahead and say transform and reflect and say OK. And there we are, two of them there. So I can go ahead and shrink that down. Or actually, you know what, I'll make this one a little taller. Why not make that one a little taller? But there we go. Right away, you see, we've created a house. We put some shrubbery on there. Not too much more to do on this. It's working out pretty well. I can go back and do a little flat here, and I can go back in and tweak this one little anchor point right here. And maybe twist that little house here. Maybe bring that house. Oh, that's nice. I love that. That's a nice little addition there. So we are good to go. So for this, it's certainly easy enough to go ahead and put on a solid color background, add a few more objects,